The stories that are the headlines, the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon or Story Conference. I'm at Lingao.
Good afternoon, I'm Jove Francisco. It's Monday, February 19. Here are some stories on One News. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources clarifies its earlier revelation that China is allegedly using cyanide in Baho de Masinloc. BFAR says the statement was only based on the accounts of fisherfolk in the area.
Meanwhile, oil companies are implementing a price hike beginning tomorrow, February 20. Diesel products will be more expensive by 1 peso and 10 centavos per liter, and gasoline by 1 peso and 60 centavos a liter. And the Senate has officially issued a subpoena to Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder and leader Apollo Quiboloy. That's amid allegations of abuse within the KOJC, which the upper chamber is currently investigating.
Pero mukhang hindi lang yan ang mainit na usapin sa Senado.
What did you hear, Bok? There are rumblings. Don't know if it's artificial or actual. Is it tectonic?
Ang dinig ko sa mga nagko-cover ay meron pero they don't have enough numbers to do something drastic.
By that, you're referring to
Numbers game,
supposed rumors of a possible lang,
replacement
to replace Senate President Migs Zubiri. Again, these are talks currently unfounded, pero once the talks start, may pinanggalingan.
Hindi natin pwede kasi sabihin na hindi pa ito nangyayari. Nangyari ito in the past. Several times. Pero usually sa nasaksihan natin doon nung nagko-cover tayo, Ed, ay parang parang seldom yung yung hostile na takeover. Usually informed kung sino yung nakaupo. And they just give them the numbers sa maliit na papel. And they just accept it. Walang away-away. So, I think hindi umuusad kasi hindi kompleto or hindi pa kompleto.
But these reports come in at a very, very interesting time.
Yes.
A time when the Senate appears to be at loggerheads with the other chamber, especially with regard to the issue of charter change, People's Initiative, and whether the Senate should have a separate voice at all in any move to amend the Constitution.
Yeah, yun yung timing doon. Pero over the weekend, ang inaangal nung iba ay yung mabagal na paghilos o yung pagpirma. Halimbawa, doon sa sabina na hinihintay na matagal pero hindi nga dumarating. Pero kung sakali manggaling man yung grumbling from yung minority of the Senate, they really don't have the numbers to push for any drastic change.
Referring to the actual minority.
The actual minority.
Not the virtual minority.
Not the... Sabi ko nga, before we started the show, I told Ed and the group na nakakalito na sila kung ano na ba talaga yung minority.
That's always been a problem, especially in Congress, in the lower chamber, where you have a minority that traditionally has supported the Speaker of the House, which is a weird way of doing it.
Yeah. So, yun na nga, sabi ko rin nga, kahit sa experience natin, kahit may ganyang mga grumblings o kahit na may mga, coup talks lang na hindi naman talaga confirmed, ang importante, ang titingnan dyan, are they still dinidispense pa rin ba nila kanila yung duty? Kung ginagawa pa rin, and I think so.
Whether the work continues, but of course that's only one part of that's only one part of the work of the Senate, which is legislation. The other part of the Senate, of course, is also investigation.
Yeah.
And in the case of the particular controversy that we've been talking about for the past 2 months, the role of the Senate in amending the Constitution. So, halo-halong kalama yan.
Halo-halong kalama.
We've had some reactions already from several people. Just to give you some samplings, from Senator J.B. Ejercito, interviewed by Mian Los Baños.
Ano sabi?
Palagay ko, mahirap at this point na kasi si Senate President Migs Zubiri, yung leadership niya katanggap-tanggap sa lahat. He consults everybody, so tingin ko naman satisfied ang lahat sa kanyang liderato.
That's Senator JV, the good one.
talaga.
Because kaya ko yung pinopoint kasi the other brother ay part din itong usapin na to dahil sinasabi ay ginugroom for higher position.
In some of the reports, he's being touted as the possible replacement of Senate President Bigsby. Again, this is unverified and unfounded. It is just the rumor mill within the
Bibilang
Senate.
ako ng mga block nila eh. Parang hindi ko alam kung may enough block or or number si Senator Jinggoy if ever. Pero yun na nga, bottom line, kahit sino pa yung sinasabing mga lumulutang na names, wala pa silang masubmit na little paper with the number dun sa nakaupo ngayon.
Anyway, may ambush interview with Jinggoy Estrada via Menos Paños pa rin, sabi ni Senator Jinggoy, wala akong alam sa resolution. I suppose he's talking about the resolution for of support for him or whoever. I do not know where that came from, okay? I don't know. Wala akong alam dyan. I don't know. I have not talked to a single senator about it. Yeah.
It's a denial from Senator Jinggoy.
I don't know. I don't talk a single sentence anymore. Also, curiously, the reports of at least the rumors of Jinggoy being touted as the replacement Senate President comes at an interesting time. It's only a month, been barely a month since he was convicted by the Sandigan Bayan for one count of direct bribery and two counts of indirect bribery, although he was acquitted for plunder.
Yeah.
And all these convictions are still, I understand, currently under appeal. So, medyo, a lot of interesting things going on in the Senate. Let's broaden things a bit.
Ginugulo ba ang Senate? Tingin mo.
So, talaga, ikaw, malicious ka. Ako...
Hindi, mabuti ang magsabi niya mamaya yung guest natin. Baka meron siyang pananaw.
Oo. Ang kausap natin ngayon, we'll talk about, among other things, developments in the regional stage and in the world stage. And maybe he can also pitch in about what's happening in the Senate. No?
Senate and ICC, we can ask him.
And the ICC.
Yeah.
Anyway, over in Indonesia, a new leader is poised to take over the reins of a country of 274 million people. Prabowo Subianto, a former military official or former lieutenant general, has quite an interesting human rights record. What happens to Indonesia's democracy in the next 5 years? Weighing in is geopolitical analyst Richard A. Darian. Hi, sir. Magandang hapon.
Salamat po, salamat. Please make sure you also introduce me as a vlogger. All right,
okay.
Vlogger Richard.
Gusto mong influencer na rin. Influencer na rin.
He is. Nagtatalo-talo pag meron sa nilabas sa tweet or post sa X.
Good to see you guys. Kamusta kayo?
Hello.
Hey, thanks for joining us. This guy, Prabowo, quite controversial, but some people seem to be drawing parallels between him and Tatay Digong. How fair is that? Are those two parallelisms?
Yeah.
Well, I have been writing on and following Indonesia for quite some time. In a way, if you look at the case of Prabowo, he's kind of a mixture of Marcos Jr. and Duterte, right? In fact, ang meron tayo ngayon sa Indonesia is also a unit team, right? Let me just talk about the parallels. Very interesting. So in the Philippines, you had Marcos Jr. together with the daughter of the former president winning close to 60% of the votes. In Indonesia, you have Prabowo Subianto, who's the former son-in-law and a very controversial figure attached to the Suharto dictatorship era, also winning, together with the son of former President Jokowi, or outgoing President Jokowi, around 60% of the votes. And then I got to know from some of my Indonesian friends that if you look at the branding strategy of Prabowo Subianto, remember, third time lucky siya. So may pagka-P awards pa kang nangyari. Hindi ito first time na tumakbo siya bilang presidente. He got around 45% of votes in two previous elections where he lost to Jokowi quite narrowly. This time he won big time. We'll discuss shortly why. But if you look at Prabowo Subianto, one big reason why he did very well in these elections was because sobrang cool yung kanyang branding among Gen Z and the young generation. In fact, ang branding sa kanya is hindi lang tatay, cuddly, cute tatay.
Oh.
And some Indonesians have told me that yung branding team niya ay potentially branding team din ni someone who did very well also in our elections in 2022. So, mukhang there are many familiar themes here in Indonesian politics. Ang tawag ko nga dito, the Philippinization of Indonesian politics. Few political dynasties dominating the political landscape, a new unity emerging. But I think just like our unity here in the Philippines, we're going to see a lot of drama later on because there's going to be tension between Jokowi and his son, who's right now the vice president on one hand, and likely Prabowo, who was his former nemesis, then turned ally, and now who knows what.
But how consistent is this gentle uncle branding with the real Prabowo? I mean, he's a lieutenant general, a former lieutenant general. He used to head Kopassus, the Indonesian Special Forces unit. He was, I understand, dishonorably discharged because of his human rights or the human rights record of his former unit. He was also banned from entering the U.S. for quite a long time because of a human rights record. And, you know, he had a very colorful record in Timor-Leste or in East Timor in 1999, even before.
Yeah, very, very controversial. So not only the ex-son-in-law of the former dictator Suharto, but he has been accused of overseeing the parang desaparecidos, no? Yung mga disappeared activists in the 1990s, some brutal operations in East Timor when Indonesia was occupying the place. In fact, he unabashedly ran on a kind of a strongman iron fist branding in his two previous stints when he ran for the presidency. But this time there was a conscious effort to make him look like a cuddly, cute kind of grandfather. Now, obviously, we know this is all branding. In fact, a lot of that happened on TikTok. And we know that TikTok is not necessarily, you know, the number one platform for long-form analytic discussions, right? Just to be fair to TikTok, right? Or not so fair, perhaps. But speaking of that, he's a shrewd politician. And I know a number of friends, very high-profile journalists who interviewed him back in the day. And the description that they keep on coming up is he's a complex character. Meaning there are many shades to him. Kind of similar to Digong, right? But perhaps he's coming in here with even more political experience at the highest levels than Digong. Remember, he was the defense secretary under Jokowi, and he was engaged in very high-profile international diplomacy. At some point, he had idiosyncratic, interventions like trying to present himself as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine and the conflict there. So he's a very complex and slightly unpredictable character. So let's see whether his losses and recent successes teach him enough lessons to not go into kind of a self-aggrandizement approach when it comes to his presidency. But the reality is that Indonesian democracy is now very weak. And the reason for that is not Prabowo. Ironically, it's Jokowi. So if you look at a lot of analysis, the reason why Prabowo won so comfortably is because Jokowi played a very important role in that. And remember, Jokowi was seen as the Obama of Asia. In fact, medyo similar itsura nila. I remember very well following him when he ran for governor of Jakarta, and then he became the president. He was seen as a reformist, kind of almost a liberal leader. But over time, he became more and more, I don't know, trapo? If I would use the term, sorry about that. So what happened is actually until last October, it was a three-way race. But what happened was Jokowi pushed for his own son, Gibran, who's I think just my age, he's around 35, 36, to become the vice president, even if their constitution says at least 40 years old ka dapat bilang vice president. And I think he had to kind of, push his friends and family in the constitutional court to allow for that based on the reports. And eventually his son was allowed to run. And then more controversially, the accusation here is that Jokowi, from October onwards, kasi until October, it was a three-man race, around 30+% lang si Prabowo, Jokowi left nothing to chances. So he directly got involved by, this is the report, overseeing the release, familiar sa atin yan, of social assistance services dun sa mga key provinces. I think this is East and Central Java. Now, what makes this even more interesting and familiar is the one who was doing well in those provinces was Ganjar, who was from his own political party. So he actually campaigned against his own party mate for Prabowo, his former nemesis, so that he makes it also easy for his son to win as part of the tandem there. So mukhang the game plan for Jokowi here was to make sure that he has a foothold in the upcoming administration. But Prabowo being Prabowo, I don't think he wants to be Jokowi's man. At the end of the day, he has his own pride, his ideas and visions. So expect, I'm not saying bardagulan, but expect some very interesting dynamics to also emerge in what I call the Indonesian unity in the coming years or so. At least in the case of like Sara Duterte and BBM, more or less their peers. Look at Prabowo, he's like a 70-plus-year-old man. Gibran, the vice president, is like my age, right? So I'm not sure that's going to be a very collaborative relationship down the road. But for now, we're seeing a classic case of Javanese politics, which is split the difference. Compromise, consensus building, very ASEAN. Very ASEAN ito. So far, Jokowi is leaving a major imprint. But as I said, he also weakened the institutions in the country. The way the Constitutional Court was kind of, strongman into allowing the son to run, the way that there was accusations of the president getting rid of any pretension to neutrality and directly using the machinery of the state. Again, I know this is familiar to us Filipinos. And also the fact that, anti-corruption commissions, among others, were the KPK was weakened. And importantly, the other accusation against Jokowi was that kung yung mga LGU leaders daw ay hindi nag-cooperate, pwede sila maakusa ng corruption cases. So there were like intimidation tactics used for LGU leaders to rally behind the Prabowo team. This is the reports and accusations that we're getting out of Indonesia. So nakakabahala yung situation. And we saw in the past that Jokowi also tried to pull off his own Duterte by reintroducing death penalty, implementation of death penalty against drug dealers, and also with some of these, controversial alliances that he built. Not to mention, si Bato de la Rosa, I think he got the highest police award in Indonesia back in the day. Yeah. This is under Jokowi. So this tells you that they have very similar flavor to the Philippines as far as their democracy is concerned.
Mm-hmm. But why would Jokowi opt to push for somebody like Prabowo and have his son run under him instead of using his own political party and have the son run under that? Considering they used to be rivals politically, and he has no guarantee that Prabowo is going to obey.
Well, I think we had 2 or 3 years of kind of a semi-alliance between Prabowo and Jokowi, and perhaps there was enough there for Jokowi to feel that he could at least trust but verify it. And that's why his son is there in the administration. Let's see what will happen with the cabinet appointments. If the Jokowi guys will also be part of the cabinet. Let's see what the son Gibran is going to get. But importantly, I think this is a classic also Machiavellian politics. Keep your friends allies close, but keep your enemies or potential rivals even closer. Right? So this is Jokowi playing a very high stakes and potentially risky strategy. But perhaps from his side, this is a smart cooptation strategy. But I just have my doubts whether Prabowo is going to be Jokowi's man. I'm sure Prabowo is going to show his own in the coming years. Maybe not right away. So, stay in tune for some interesting politics in Indonesia.
Special Forces Commander dati. Oo nga. Nung kapasos Ayun saan gonna be a
pushover.
Si
BBM rin, di ba? Nag-Special Forces Army training din. Pero bumait siya. So I don't know. Baka naman ma-BBM siya. You never know. It's ASEAN politics. The same way we're surprised with how BBM has turned out so far. Who knows? Maybe Prabowo, because of the wisdom of the era and ages, will be different. But let me tell you one thing. I think Indonesia will be more proactive internationally. Remember, Jokowi, I don't think he speaks English. I think he's a very much small and medium enterprise businessman, classic populist. Prabowo is a princeling, right? Controversial princeling. Prabowo is graduate of Sandhurst. He speaks English. He's very articulate. He's very comfortable with international media. So maybe we'll see more kind of a BBM-style statesman-like version of Prabowo in the coming years. But if Prabowo want to go more in the strongman direction and play and manipulate the whatever is left of Indonesian democracy, I think he's also in a very strong position. So in short, the world, the Indonesian politics is his oyster. It very much depends what Prabowo wants in the coming years. So.
For those who don't know, Sandhurst is the British version of West Point. Did I get
yes,
right?
West Point, or PMA, yeah.
Okay, before we go to local politics or politics in the Philippines, Richard, nasabi mo na yung ASEAN politics ang hirap namang lampasan, dahil meron din mga ganap sa Thailand, especially with former leader Thaksin Shinawatra. Anong tingin mo dito? Kahit siguro nung panahon na hindi siya makabalik-balik at nakaka-detain, ay nakakagawa siya ng paraan to affect politics there, right? So, paano ngayon na siya ay he's a free man?
Well, another interesting thing, again, familiar, pansin nyo naka-neck brace si Taksin.
Doon sa doon sa sakyan.
It looks like a tradition, right? Like when
who
some
should not be
traditional
named.
politicians
Alam mo?
kind of getting old and
Philippinization na ba ito?
and trying to get rehabilitated, biglang may neck brace na sila. So, that caught my attention immediately with the case of Taksin. Now, of course, as you know, the Taksin drama has been going on for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
So more than So a lot of things you're seeing in Thailand right now, the good infrastructure, especially in the provincial areas, the beautiful asphalt, the healthcare system, a lot of that is Thaksin. A lot of that is Thaksin.
Yes.
But Thaksin was also very, very ambitious. A really right-wing populist who oversaw a brutal drug war well ahead of Duterte. In fact, baka ginaya pa ni Duterte si Thaksin. He also was playing the anti-American card during the Asian financial crisis. Very controversial person. But now, ang nangyari here is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Both the monarchy, another very controversial people, and the military on one hand, and the Thaksin Poitay party, they have one single enemy. And the enemy is Future Forward Party, right?
Yeah.
Which won the elections last year. You had a progressive millennial leader winning the elections fair and square, sweep the elections across Bangkok and
able
major
to sit
cities.
down.
But he was simply not allowed to become the next prime minister. And eventually, there was a kind of a counter-coalition. May realignment. Parang Pilipinas din, may realignment. So, yun ang gusto ko sa ASEAN. Kung may unity sa Indonesia, ngayon naman may realignment sa Thailand. Kung saan yung mga dati magkalaban na si Thaksin, military, and monarchy, ang kalaban nila ngayon ay yung Future Forward Party, yung mga progressive, mga liberals, who won actually elections but essentially were not allowed to take over power.
So are we being the new political model of the region?
Molde, peg. Palaging peg ba tayo?
Actually, you know what I'm saying? The reason why I'm shamelessly confident analyzing other ASEAN countries, I know marami nagbabasa. Ito na naman si Darian, kinakain niya yung lunchbox ng ibang expert. No, it's because it's so familiar, right? It's so familiar. Whenever I go across ASEAN, especially countries like Thailand and Indonesia, they are our political twins. I mean, Thailand and the Philippines were so comparable in the 70s and 80s, and nowadays it's more Indonesia and the Philippines. Ibang usapan yung development, right? Yeah. I think those two countries have done well better than us in terms of manufacturing, industrial policy. But politics-wise, I think we're still the gold standard, but not necessarily. I mean, I want to say Talano gold, but I'm not going there. But we are the gold standard for politics in Southeast Asia, for better or for worse. Kaya bilang isang Filipino, I feel very confident making commentaries about our
Richard,
neighbors and friends.
I think you have to define what you mean by gold standard of politics.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I remember there was an interview with the Sri Lankan politician. Remember they had the was it Rajapaksa family that they were kicked out because it was controversial and all. And someone said something like, "Oh, I'm sure they'll come back one day." The same way, like the Marcoses came back in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying here is that we're setting the standard and precedents about rehabilitation and people who have controversial past rebranding and coming back. But to be honest, I'm wishing the best for our neighboring countries. BBM.
ASEAN.
I'm not endorsing the administration. I have my own concerns with some of its policies, but has turned out way better than many people expected. We are seeing a much more soft, much more statesman-like version of Marcos. So who knows? Maybe we'll see a version of that with Prabowo. And as Thaksin comes back, another elder statesman in ASEAN, probably Thaksin also will come in with more caution, with more pragmatism than we saw in the past, where he was essentially trying to displace the monarchy as the penultimate center of power in Thai politics.
Richard, we have like a minute left or less for this segment. Pero we want sana your input dun sa first Miguel Zubiri and the second one is the ICC. So parang mabilisan na komento mo dun.
Yeah, I mean the Senate politics is crazy, and as far as the Senate and the Congress back and forth is concerned, I mean a lot of that is about the PI issue, right? Now it looks like we are moving towards a consensus around the constitutional amendments on economic provisions of our constitution. Mukhang yun ang we are moving towards. So it looks like decidido, may mga grupong decidido na to get some sort of constitutional amendment no matter what. But as I said, it may have its merits, but that's a Pandora's box. That's a Pandora's box, no? So let's see how this is moving forward. Also, I mean, that's the problem. Wala kasi tayong, major opposition na eh, 'di ba? I mean, talagang it's a drama between allies of Duterte and allies of Marcos and some who are swimming in between, you know? So I think in that situation, we are having classic power play between the two houses, and let's see also where things move forward. What was the other question? I know
Well,
I have 5 seconds.
Richard, connected kaya yung mga talks of a
ICC.
coup against Miguel Zubiri at dito sa mga pressure for them to move and act on the changes in the Constitution?
Well, a lot of that will depend on the relationship between Zupiri and the president. I think the important thing to keep in mind is what happened nung mukhang nag-away ang leadership ng Congress and leadership of Senate, because Zubiri has been very vocal about his dissatisfaction with how the lower house has been approaching this. But let's not forget, the man who leads the lower house is the de facto right-hand man and first cousin of the president. So something may have ticked the president in a certain direction that is raising this possibility that the president may have someone else in mind in terms of who he prefers to be the next Senate president. But you know what I'm more interested in is the possibility that Rodrigo Duterte may consider running for Senate next year, and he could be the next Senate president. But again, that's speculative at this point in time. But the Senate presidency will be crucial position to watch out for the foreseeable future.
What about the ICC? I'm sure you read about the Octa survey on the ICC. 59% of Filipinos want us to join the ICC. What's the other figure? 51% ba? Or
na magtuloy yung
want to have an investigation by the ICC here.
Yeah, so essentially the SWS and the Octa numbers kind of overlap, right? So 51% in the SWS want cooperation. I want ICC to probe. In fact, 57 or 8% want the Philippine government to cooperate with ICC. That's a big number. And then Octa more or less, confirms that. Now, Senator Trillanes, in a conversation I had with him, he said that they commissioned a survey which showed something even more interesting, that only 30% were against a warrant of arrest being issued by ICC. So hindi lang ito probe, hindi lang ito cooperation, pinag-usapan na ngayon that yung potential for a warrant of arrest against the former president, only around 30% were firmly against it. 20, 30 were kind of okay, and then the biggest chunk were undecided, which just tells you how things are moving right now. I think if this survey was held when Duterte was the president, I think we would get a dramatically different numbers. I doubt more than 20% would be for it. Yeah. So I think as the climate of fear, I'll be brutally honest about it. I mean, all due respect to our friends in the survey agencies, I think they did a great job. At the same time, we cannot discount the climate of fear that I think influenced a lot of numbers and approval of Duterte. I mean, just look at the surveys by SWS about people's fears of expressing negative opinion and publishing negative things about the government until 2022, 2023, right? So now that the climate of fear is being lifted, the former president is seen as quite marginalized or not as powerful as before. I think more and more Filipino people are being more honest about their conscience. And I'm not totally surprised, guys, because remember, the SWS also showed during Digong's time that 7 out of 10 Filipinos were fearful of being victims of EJK, and up to 95% of people in Metro Manila said dapat mahuli silang buhay itong mga suspected drug dealers. So given all these accusations of EJK, I think deep inside the Filipino people are compassionate, and deep inside vast majority of our kababayan want some justice or at least proper scrutiny of what happened. So I think that's not a good news for the ex-president.
Okay. Well, geopolitical vlogger there.
Vlogger, yeah, kasi
influencer.
biglang nagkaroon tayo, marites na tayo eh. So, kailangan natin ipasok yan.
And
Salamat.
of course, geopolitical specialist and vlogger.
And host.
Dito
Dito sa Longcon.
Professor Richard Hidaran, sir. Thank you very much.
Pleasure as always. Sorry, nakuha ko yung time ni si Manya.
Thank you, Richard.
Let's talk to you soon.
Okay, we just need to pause for a quick break. The Story Conference will be right back. Stay with us.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.
Stories that are the headlines and stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon or Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao with Jove and Al Francisco.
Hello, Eduardo. We now bring in
Manuel, Mr. Manuel Mogato.
Mogato, isa sa mga editors po natin sa katatapos ng actual Storycon with our producers. Hello, Manny.
Ay, magandang hapon. Good afternoon, Ed and Joby. Ang malaking storya ngayon is yung bakbakan sa Lanao nung linggo, no? Yung 44th Infantry Division nakasagupa yung Maute Group sa Munay. Ang resulta 6 na sundalo ang namatay at 4 ang sugatan. Sa kabilang side, may 3 patay na Maute. Pero may narinig akong bagong balita na 7 na raw ang namatay na sundalo. So this is the biggest casualty in a single battle, no, ng AUP this year. 7 soldiers died in a battle with Maute Group.
Mogs, ba't parang dami? Ano nangyari? Nabigla ba sila? O ano?
Nagkagulatan eh. Nahabol kasi ng mga sundalo yung Maute Group, no? Hindi nila alam na malaki palang grupo yon, yung nakasagupa nila. Actually, yung 44th Infantry Battalion, may reinforcement sila na 2 batalyon ng Scout Ranger, no? Mga commandos. Pero unfortunately, yung mga ranger ata namatay dito sa sagupaan, hindi yung 44th Infantry Battalion, kundi yung mga ranger ata yung namatay. Siguro nabigla sila at hindi nila alam na may mga nakaabang palang Maute doon sa lugar.
Kasi yung earlier pronouncements ng armed forces, the Maute Group is already on the way out na. Parang malulusaw na halos, tapos biglang nagkaroon ng ganito.
Nung linggo ang sinasabi ng armed forces spokesperson, si Margaret Padilla, Colonel Padilla, napatay nila yung leader ng Maute Group na ang tinatawag nilang engineer na gumawa doon ng bomba na sumabog sa MSU noong December na 4 ang namatay. At ang sabi ni General Bronner, ang total na napatay nilang Maute Group since December ay 18 na. Kaya malaking setback siguro itong nangyaring sagupaan sa Munay. Actually, yung Munay hindi na area ng ano yan ng Maute, di ba? Kasi Lanao del Norte na yan
Ang tanda ko dyan sa Munay kasi looban yan I've been there before nung panahon ng MILF pa. Nung panahon ng MILF, stronghold ng MILF yan. Dikit-dikit yan dun sa sa mga lugar kung saan dating hawak ni Commander Bravo.
Bravo.
Oo. Na ngayon assemblyman sa Bangsamoro Autonomous Region for Muslim Mindanao.
So hindi ko alam
that was
kung
before.
May kinalaman yung MILF dito na natago itong mga Maute Group. Speculation pa yan.
Although Maute also at the same time is widely known to be made out of yung mga tumiwalag doon sa MLF because of their disagreement with the peace process.
Ed, yung sitwasyon sa BARM is dilikan ding-ding din, no? Kasi may election next year. At maaring matalo yung MILF sa mga traditional politician dyan.
Yeah, because this time they will have to face the ballot. Hindi na by appointment.
Kasi wala namang gaanong mangyaring development under MILF leadership. At alam mo na, yung mga matandang leader ng MILF, mga negosyante na, no? Sila Alhaj Sumurad, sila Iqbal, mga negosyante na, no? Ang delikado, yung mga bata na medyo mainit at medyo radikal, no? So, yan ang inaabangan ngayon ng ating military dyan sa BARM area.
Yeah. Although to be fair naman to the MILF, there have been substantial improvements in the BARM since the new government took over, yung MLF. However, yung nga lang, the question nga na lumalabas is it sufficient, or is the pace of development and progress sufficient to quell yung mga hinanakit at yung mga, kahit pa paano kasi, people are impatient eh. It's been decades already.
Alam mo, ang issue rito, yung decommissioning.
Decommissioning.
Oo, kasi nangako si OPAP, no? Si General Galvez ng 1 million each. Ang mga sumurrender. Alam mo ba kailan sumurrender?
Ilan?
26,000.
Oh, yun na.
Wow. Okay.
Times 1
ngayon, hindi pa binibigay yung 1 million each. So,
tama,
medyo
like 36,
yung mga MILF
36 billion?
Kasi na yung pera namin. Yan. Kaya,
Tama ba,
isang issue.
yung mathematics ko, 36,000 times 1 million each, 36 billion.
Yan, oo.
Yung
Malaking pera.
ko.
Parang tama naman, Ed.
But what they don't realize is that yung pinangakong 1 million each is not in cash. It's valuated.
Pero hindi kasi ang narinig ng mga surrender
Yun
during the ceremony,
kung hindi
1 million pesos.
kung hindi nagkakaintindihan, may loss in translation. Ang understanding ko kasi, it's a value of 1 million in total of livelihood grants and housing and of course also cash. Pero hindi 1 million na tig-isa kayong 1 milyon.
Oo, kasi
That
alam
will be
ko,
controversial.
babayaran din yung baril na sinurrender.
Oo, may ganun yun.
Hindi yun 1 million, yung baril. So, parang 18,000 ata yung Armalite.
Mogs.
Manny, dyan ka lang. Join the conversation because ipapasok natin si Octa Research Fellow Guido David para mas mahimay pa natin yung survey nila na bumulaga sa atin nitong weekend. Good afternoon, Sir Guido.
Hi, Doc Guido.
Yes, good afternoon. Belated Happy Hearts Day, Jove and Ed.
May ganung hugot si Doc. May ganung hugot si Doc.
Sige, Chinese New Year din natin, Professor Guido. Pero anyway, welcome to the Storycon. Hindi to the Chiefs ngayon. Storycon
hindi
tayo ngayon, Professor.
Hindi to wag po.
Hindi nito wag po kahit nandiyan si Tito Manny, ha? Pero
kala ko wag po.
Ed, go ahead.
Sir, we were looking at numbers na nirelease ninyo. Fascinating numbers eh. Ang tataas ng 59%.
Basta more than half lahat
in
ng
total,
figures.
In favor of rejoining Rome Statute.
Across
55,
classes, A, B, C, D, E.
And across island groups.
Yeah.
Tapos 55%, 59% to rejoin the Rome Statute, and 55% to allow, if I understand correctly, to allow the ICC to investigate. Sir, where is this coming from? Kasi, di ba, parang for the longest time,
parang agree sila. And then most of the people are,
at least the noisy ones, the loud ones,
hindi sila naniniwala. Pininiwalaan nila yung kagustuhan ng dating administrasyon na tayo ay labas na dyan.
Well, medyo nakakagulat din ng konti. Yung results ng survey natin, kinonduct siya December 10 to 14, 2023. Iting Octa Research tugod ng MASA fourth quarter survey, 1,200 respondents nationwide. Tama nga kayo, tinanong natin, unang tanong, should the Philippines rejoin the International Criminal Court? At 59%, almost 6 out of 10 Filipinos ay nag-agree. 41% said no. And then, pag titingnan natin yung breakdown, pinakamataas na sa Balanced Luzon, 65% said yes. Pero sa Mindanao, actually halos 50-50. 51% yes, 49% said no. Halos 50-50 lang. Halos, evenly divided mga tao sa Mindanao. So how did this happen? Well, tinanong natin to kasi nung bandang November, December, sabi ng Pangulo natin, si PBBM, yun nga, pinag-aaralan nila kung papasukin yung ICC and kung magko-cooperate sa investigation. And so, yun, kaya tinanong din namin itong tanong na ito. At we conducted December 10 to 14. Pwede nga itong nagbago na sa ngayon. Pero pag titingnan nga natin yung yung cooperation with ICC, 55% ang nagsabing yes. 45% ang nagsabing no. Although sa cooperation, mas mababa doon yung Mindanao. Mindanao is only parang 42% lang ang gusto mag-cooperate with ICC. Wala kaming basis for comparison kasi hindi namin ito tinanong dati or existing ICC concerns. So yung babatian natin, I'm not sure kung may basta itong survey, may basis tayo. I think it's more of anecdotal yung basis natin na dati hindi pinapapasok yung ICC. I mean, I'm not sure. Hindi ako nag-check ng ibang surveys kung may corresponding data sila regarding that. Pero ang person ko is yung mga Filipinos base dito sa survey, naniniwala sa proseso, sa due process. And may mga iba nag-overreact dito. Sabi, may gustong ipakulong, mga Pilipino. Hindi naman about ipapakulong. It's more about, finding the truth and being transparent. And yun nga, conducting due process.
Prof, but I suppose what really was surprising for a lot of people were the figures from Mindanao. Of course, Mindanao being the bailiwick of former President Duterte. Diba? 51% of Mindanaoans said they agree to us join the ICC and the Rome Statute. Mga 42% agreeing of Mindanaoans agreeing na we should support the ICC investigation. Kahit 42% yun, that's still surprisingly high.
Yeah, well, Mindanao yun. Pero pag titingnan natin yung regional breakdown, Region 11, which is Davao Region, ang nagsabing yes is only 10%. And ang nagsabing no is 90%. Pero may mga ibang regions, surprisingly, I would have thought na mas papanig sila. Pero like Region 10, this is Northern Mindanao, 92% nagsabi yes. So baliktad.
Northern is Misamis, Cagayan, sir? Ano yung Northern Mindanao?
Yes, Misamis Oriental. Cagayan de Oro is in Northern Mindanao. I think Bukidnon is in Northern Mindanao. So it's a bit surprising na, may malaking disparity sa numbers na nakukuha natin. And again, sa mga nakikinig, this is just kami, mga messenger lang kami. This is data from surveys. Tinanong lang natin yung mga kababayan natin anong opinion nila regarding this.
Interesting, no? Mogs, ikaw. May gusto mong tanong? Nawala si Mogs. Ayan.
Yes, Mogs.
Ayan. Totoo naman yung sinasabi ni Professor, no? Na tingin ko talaga nagbago na ang ihip ng hangin. Dahil nawala na yung climate of fear na sinasabi kanina ni Professor Idarian, no?
Ano kinakain mo daw, Manny?
Champurado.
Okay.
Meriente.
Okay. Go, Professor.
Well, I'm not an opinion guy. I'm a data guy. So I just base everything on the numbers. Sina Manny sina Richard Hidarian na yung pwedeng interpolate ng ng mga opinions. It's possible yung mga sinasabi nila na baka and minsan yung mga tao din naman yung kung sino yung ruling administration, kumaga parang support sila sa ruling administration. Parang ganun. I get that impression. And then pag nagpalit ng administration, hindi naman sa sinasabi nating but more of we support the flag, kumbaga. And ganun din, if we talk to military personnel, they are loyal to the flag, they're loyal to the country. So not about the personality. So pag nagbago na yung leadership, depende sa yung climate or yung environment na meron doon sa leadership nito.
Sir, when are you planning to have another survey on this same issue? Is it a quarterly thing or a semestral thing?
Yes, it's quarterly. So this probe, we might ask it again. Yung next survey namin probably around sometime within the next few weeks. We definitely are going to ask this question. Baka may mga other questions pa kami itanong. Aside from yung mga standard questions namin about yung mga government programs, about senatorial races, etc.
Sir, pabato na rin kung sakaling gusto yung tanong, in the event of an arrest warrant, will the respondents, in the event of an arrest warrant issued by the ICC, would respondents,
Change their mind or
support it?
Support.
Or
Yeah.
their opinion?
Maganda tanong yan, Ed and Jovi. And that's something we did not ask. Kasi so in my opinion, ibang discussion na yun pag may arrest
okay.
warrant na
Yes,
Ibang
sir.
discussion yung joining the ICC is one discussion.
Yeah.
And then the next level is cooperating. That's another discussion.
Ibang usapan talaga yung pag may
arrest
warrant.
Pero,
exactly. So,
kailan ulit, Professor Guido? Kailan ulit yung yung next na round?
within the next few months, kung makausap niya si Professor Rai, you can ask him din kung kailan
Okay.
yung next round. Pero yun nga, I agree, it's a different discussion and baka iba yung maging result natin, baka hindi more than 50%. So, I can't say.
Yeah.
So, sir, when you say baka more than 50%, you mean baka more than 50% would agree? Of course,
I mean,
that's speculation.
Baka less than 50%, yes, yung mag-agree na kung may arrest warrant, move forward with that.
Kasi mas radical yun eh.
Generally, yes, ibang discussions na yun.
Okay. With that, thank you muna tayo.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Kay Professor Guido David
Bulaki
ng
namin kayo.
Octa Research. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Ed and Joey and si Tito Manny.
Thank
After,
you.
Thank you, Professor.
Hindi, kaya ako tinatanong yung date ng next survey nila kung base doon sa mga interviews natin with the lawyers saka sa mga pronouncements ni former Senator Trillanes, baka tumama sa mga oras na yun.
Well, this survey was done in
Kung
December.
quarterly yung survey
Yeah.
nila,
Quarterly eh.
baka March.
So,
Baka March.
baka end of the quarter nila ginagawa kasi
Yeah.
December nila ginawa last year eh.
Correct.
So nga, baka nga end of March.
Oh,
We'll
March.
see.
And then we'll see the results in April or early May.
Oh,
Well,
baka sa April may warrant of arrest.
Okay. Nako.
Pero kagaya ng sabi ni Professor Guido, ibang usapan pag warrant of arrest na pinag-uusapan eh. Baka mas conservative ang mga tao
Baka
magbigay
kasi
ng
we all
pahayag.
know what happened noong time na yung actual arrest kay
Kay Erap.
former
Kaya,
President Erap.
Rumble yun.
Parang
Tanda
people
natin
were parang gusto talaga nila yung nangyari na napababa, pero nung inaresto na iba rin yung
Ibang
feelings
usapan
nila.
yun.
Oo, iba rin
Rumble
yung
yun.
feelings nila. Kasi dramatic nga naman, mga pa-helicopter kayo doon eh.
Ba't hindi ako
Hindi ka kasali doon, pero sabihin yung channel na yun, di ba parang kita yung nangyari sa Polk Street eh.
Oh, yeah.
actual
Ako na doon
arrest.
sa baba nun, ako binabato ng kuno.
Correct. Anyway, akalain mo na ubos natin ang oras, Manny Mogs. Kailangan natin
Oy,
mapaalam.
salamat.
Kay
Na-check ba
Manny.
na si Manny Mogs sumusubo ng temporado ata kanina?
Hayaan natin ituloy na ni Manny Mogato ang kanyang pagkain. Thank you, our One
Thank
News
you.
editor, Manny Mogato. Puno na, dami ko pa dapat, may taksin pa tayo. Pero tomorrow na lang po siguro yung mga nabiti namin pag-uusapan, pati yung mga update tungkol dun sa nangyayari sa Senado. Tomorrow na po yan, ibabaon na lang namin. Those are the stories that are the headlines, the stories behind the headlines. I'm Jove Francisco.
I'm Ed Lingao. Join the story conference again tomorrow at 4 p.m. This is One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.